Alright, here's a bit of a personal update for those who are interested. So first off, health-wise, a few people asked on the Blood and Iron tournament video that I uploaded why I didn't compete. And of course, not everybody can keep track of everything and has watched all the videos. So for those who don't know, I'm still dealing with the aftermath of injuries. One is something that happened during sparring in March 2015, where I twisted my knee, and I'm still dealing with that, especially with the footwork, things like pushing off of that leg on the balls of the feet. That's still giving me a lot of trouble. Fortunately, I finally, after almost a year, I got an appointment for an MRI scan, which is supposed to be done in early July? I think it was around the 10th or so. And hopefully then they can finally see exactly what's going on with that, because several physiotherapists don't really know. Some of them suspected a meniscal tear, but some of the symptoms are inconsistent with that, and yeah, they don't really know for sure. And then there's a shoulder injury on top of it. For those who don't know, I was hit by a car on January 11th this year on my way to Blood and Iron on my bicycle. The car driver didn't pay attention and turned into the road where I had right of way and hit me at, fortunately, very slow speed. But it was enough to give me a concussion, break a rib, and separate the shoulder. It's not the same as a dislocation. My collarbone is poking out, and it looks like this is going to be a chronic problem. As I talked to an orthopedic surgeon. He told me that surgery for this kind of injury is very difficult. There is basically about a 50-50 chance that the surgery would even improve anything. And at the same time, there's a risk that the surgery might make it even worse, introduce new problems. Like, for example, I could get arthritis further down the line. So it doesn't seem like a risk worth taking. As it is, I have pretty much full mobility in the joint, but it's still weaker than it was before. Like the muscles and the ligament, of course, is messed up, and now the muscles have to compensate, and they're also weaker than before. Some movements cause kind of a grinding sensation there, where I can feel the bones moving against one another. So it's not a pleasant thing. It's tolerable, and yeah, I basically have to deal with it at this point. He also said that it's going to take about 9 to 12 months for everything to completely settle. The issue with the bone poking out, that's not going to go away. It's not going to suddenly magically realign, but it might get a little better. So of course I don't want to make things even worse, and the kinds of sudden explosive movements during sparring, including also being hit in various spots, that would be a problem. Like, I can't take a hit on the shoulder right now. In fact, right now I'm kind of trying to come up with a design for a pauldron to wear on that side, because as you may remember, I have this really thick, tough leather. That would be quite good for that, especially when boiled, with some padding underneath, some closed cell foam maybe. And so, yeah, I'm trying to come up with something there so I can have a piece of armor just on that shoulder. As, normally during sparring, especially with single stick, we don't gear up fully. We just have protection for the elbows and knees, because joints, of course, are very vulnerable. You can have all kinds of problems if you get struck there. You can have tendon inflammation and all kinds of things. Tendinitis is the word. And so normally we have minimal protection, but I need something for that. The knee is covered anyway, because we usually wear protectors, as mentioned. Probably most people aren't interested in this personal stuff anyway, even though I'm still going to make videos about personal opinion and ramblings and such. But I've also started putting stuff like this unlisted and then publishing it only on Patreon. So people who contribute funds via Patreon so that they have some kind of bonus content and I'm also going to put, outtakes occasionally, stuff like that there. So things that are not essential, that people who just watch the channel regularly don't miss out on, but it's just, an additional bonus content for those who decide to contribute any funds, which, as I mentioned before, only go into things that are relevant for the videos. The past couple of months of Patreon funding went, for one, into 2 of the new zombie heads that Zombie Go Boom has come up with, because they're now making a version that is more realistic, more appropriate density for the skull material and thickness and everything, so it's more anatomically correct. And they're now also using more appropriate flesh substitute. Before it was this foam that wasn't particularly realistic, and now it's more stretchy material, and that's going to be very interesting. So 2 of those, they are still in the making, and I don't know yet when I'll have them, so it's probably a matter of a month or 2 perhaps. Can't quite say yet, so I'm going to test those. And second, also Ballistic gel. As you may know from my earlier videos, I tried Ballistic gel at one point, but that was the tougher 20% type, which wasn't very suitable for cutting tests because it's super ridiculously tough and very, very difficult to cut. I want to go back to it because of mainly lack of alternative materials. The problem with other materials that I've been experimenting with, especially silicone rubber, which is far more realistic, but it's super expensive. Soaked newspaper rolls and beach mats are inconsistent. I've had a few cases where I rolled them slightly differently, like too tightly, for example, and I didn't soak them for long enough, or too long, alternatively. And then they turned either super soft and floppy, so they were hard to cut properly, cleanly, or they turned out extra firm, that they were basically like clubs and couldn't cut them either, so that's a little difficult. Tatami mats are generally good or pretty decent test cutting medium, not so much in terms of realism because they're not very realistic, but more in terms of just a useful target for cutting and pretty consistent. But they are super pricey to get because in and of themselves they are somewhat pricey, but shipping to Canada just makes the price explode, so that's not great. And otherwise, yeah, there are not too many options really. And the good thing with the Ballistic gel is I can reuse it, and I'm also going to try fibers in there to make it a little more tear resistant and thereby more realistic. And the final thing to ramble about is my collection and why it changes so often. When you look at just my videos, especially the reviews, it may seem like I have rooms upon rooms filled to the brim with blades, but it's not quite like that. It's usually I get something, use it for a while, review it, and then I sell it again, or I have to send it back to the maker, or I trade it for something else because, well, it's an expensive hobby and I'm not rich, so I have to reinvest funds, and it changes pretty often. So if you, for example, occasionally I do collection videos, but I find them kind of pointless because like 2 or 3 months later it may already look a bit different. However, I've got some favorites that are definitely going to stay, like the Albion Swords and the Raven Armory Gladius and a few others. But anyway, I hope you found this interesting, or at least like a mildly amusing, trivial way to pass the time, to listen to some ramblings. And thanks for watching.